inshallah. So if the brothers could please come, have a seat. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. Sisters, brothers, please. So I can tell the sisters who want to attend the lecture, they can come and have a seat again in the musalla, inshallah ta'ala. I want to, inshallah ta'ala, and as well as the parents of the children, this is normally for the master facilitator, but I will do it. Please, if you could keep them in an area from the musalla, inshallah ta'ala, just for the simple fact that it will be very hard for me to speak over them. I have 3 children, so I know how it goes. Before we get started with my story, I'm going to say something very briefly, inshallah ta'ala. Sort of a promo to the lecture. You know, before a full-length feature film, they always have 3 or 4 promos. So I want to say something, inshallah ta'ala, that goes along with everything that we've been hearing all day today, starting from the khutbah and what our dear brother said before the nikah and things of that nature. Allah Jalla wa Ala has gifted humanity with many things. So many things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us that if you were to count them, you would not be able to. You would not be able to. And one of the greatest things that He has gifted humanity with is guidance. Is guidance. And that guidance comes in 2 forms. In 2 forms. The first of that guidance is the greatest of the ni'mas, of the blessings which Allah has given to His creation. And that is His kalam, His speech, that He has gifted to mankind in the form of what we know as Al-Quran. This is our greatest gift. Without this gift, without this ni'mah, we would be lost. We would be lost. We would be like sheep grazing the earth, just taking what we can from this earth as long as we can live. But other than that, we would not even know how to use the bathroom properly. SubhanAllah. We wouldn't even know how to do our daily affairs. Along with this gift of His kalam, His speech, Allah has gifted us with messengers who have been a fulfillment in physical form of the revelation. So that guidance comes in 2 forms. The Book of Allah and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And that is the compendium of the entirety of what we have as deen. There is nothing beyond it. There is nothing that is absent from it. Everything we need is contained in it. It needs no addition. It needs no revision. It needs no amendment. It needs no subtraction. It is perfect, exactly how it is. The problem comes in when we try to do things our own way. When we insert into our religion, into our deen, that which was not revealed by Allah, nor was revealed by His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And the Prophet alayhi salatu wa sallam used to say that very regularly, that the worst of affairs are the newly innovated matters into the religion. This is the worst thing you can do. And every one of those things is a bid'ah. And every bid'ah is a dalala, is a misguidance. And every dalala, every misguidance leads to hellfire. So it's an important matter that we understand that our deen is everything we need. It's everything we need. We come from different backgrounds, all of us. I was born and raised in America, so I have a different background than someone who was born and raised in the Arab world or born and raised in the subcontinent. We have different backgrounds in that we have different cultures. We eat different foods. We might dress differently. We might talk a little bit differently. There might be certain things that I like in my personal life that you don't like, and there might be certain things that you like that I don't like. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that unless any of that conflicts with what is written in the book of Allah or the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That is where the line is drawn. The line is drawn. There is no such thing as culture when it comes to deen. The deen of Islam has no culture. It has no culture. We follow the book of Allah, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. That is our culture. That is our culture. Our likes and dislikes as personal, that's a different story. And we have to stick to that in everything that we do. Because the moment we add culture, our background, our history, things that we did from where we came from, into the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it loses everything. And it becomes Islam. Something you've created. It's not Islam anymore. It's not Islam anymore. So everything we do as a Muslim, everything that we do, that we consider to be part of our deen, it must have some evidence in the book of Allah or in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If not, we throw it out. We throw it out. I don't care how long you've been doing it. I don't care how many of your family members from way back when have been doing it. It's tossed out. This is the aqidah of the believer. They toss it out. It doesn't matter if my family's been doing this for generations. If it violates the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as established in His book and the Sunnah of His Prophet, it's garbage. It's garbage. We have to have this understanding. Because culture in conflict with deen has destroyed us. It has destroyed us. It is causing us to have so many conflicts and problems. And this is not what we have seen in the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. They were not all from the Arab world. They were not all Arabs. You had Bilal, radiallahu anhu, who was from Abyssinia, who was from Africa. You had Salman al-Farsi, radiallahu anhu, who was from Persia. And I could go on and on and on. You had, even amongst the Arabs, people who had no affiliation with each other whatsoever, such as the Aws and the Khazraj, who fought each other, who were enemies to one another for a time, and generation after generation after generation. But the moment they did like our brother Michael did, and entered into Islam, all of that disappeared. They became brothers. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. Allah says the believers are but brothers. Ikhwa, close relations to one another. Closer than kith and kin in some cases. And we have to grasp that. Now, I'm going to tell my story, but this is something that is important. If we don't establish the bonds of brotherhood and sisterhood based on Iman alone, then we are going to continue to have the conflicts that we have amongst each other. And as long as we have conflicts amongst each other, we will be weak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in His book, do not dispute with one another, lest your strength will depart from you. Do not dispute with one another. We ought to understand this concept, that our connection, our bond is in the deen. And that's it. That's it. And anything beyond that is nothing. Is nothing. When Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, his son, Abu Bakr's son was not Muslim for a very long time. After Abu Bakr accepted Islam, his son took a very long time to enter into Islam. His son, radiallahu anhu, was on the wrong side of truth during the Battle of Badr. He was on the wrong side of truth. He fought with the Quraysh against the Muslims. Later on, after Abu Bakr's son entered into Islam, he told his father, my father, on the day of Badr, I saw you and I avoided you on purpose so that I would not have to confront you and fight my own father. What love the son for Abu Bakr had, even though his father was on the enemy side, he stayed away from him. And you figure that, his father would have respect for that. Abu Bakr turned to him and said to him very frankly and bluntly, "My son, on the day of Badr, I didn't see you. Had I seen you, I would have killed you. Had I seen you, I would have fought you and killed you if I could. Because you were on the wrong side of the truth and you became an enemy to Allah and His Messenger and to the Muslims." You see, he drew the line. The line was drawn at Deen. Drawn at Deen even with his own son. Even with his own son. That's how deep Islam is. This is how powerful the Deen of Allah is that it makes my brother dearer to me than even my relatives if they're not Muslim. Subhanallah. It's an amazing thing, this Deen we have. But we don't realize that. If we only knew who we were, if we only grasped who we were, we would walk around in this world with our head held high. There would not be a single thing anyone could say to us to make us feel any different. There would not be a single thing anyone could do to us to make us feel any different. Our Deen would give us everything that we needed, even in this state of weakness. I'll give you a couple more stories, then I'll tell my story. But these stories are more powerful than my story. My story is nothing. There was a man named Abu Dhar al-Ghifari radiallahu anhu. He came from a tribe of people, Banu Ghifar. What were they known for? Does anyone know what they were known for? They were thugs. They were the gangsters of the desert. If you wanted to leave Mecca and travel with any property, you needed security. Because the tribe of Al-Ghifar, if they found you, they're going to take everything. And maybe kill you, if they need to. They were the thugs of Arabia. And Abu Dhar was one of their leaders. He was one of the prominent men from them. He came to Mecca and sat with the Prophet ﷺ. A few words out of the beautiful mouth of our beloved Messenger ﷺ, he entered into Islam like our dear brother Michael did. At that moment, he said, "I am not going to hide like you were hiding," because they were hiding at that time. He said, "I'm not going to hide like you're hiding. Allah has gifted me with Islam, I'm going to proclaim it to the world." The Prophet ﷺ advised him, "Don't do that. It's not going to turn out well for you." Anyway, he went to the Kaaba. He stood in front of the Meccans and he said, "Do you know who I am? I am Abu Dhar from the tribe of Ghifar, and I bear witness nothing has the right to be worshipped but Allah and Muhammad is His messenger." What did they do to him? They beat him until they knocked him out. Knocked him out. When he awoken from being knocked out, he stood up, said the same thing. They knocked him out again. Stood up, said the same thing. They knocked him out again. Finally, the Prophet ﷺ intervened and told Abu Dhar, "You need to leave Mecca. They're going to kill you. They're going to kill you." So Abu Dhar said, "Okay, no problem." He went back to his people, the thugs, the gangsters of Arabia, gave them the da'wah, brought them into Islam. Then he brought his entire tribe into the city of Mecca, went to the Kaaba again, and said, "I am Abu Dhar from the tribe of Ghifar, these are my people." And at first the Meccans were shaking. These gangsters have come to Mecca now. We're going to tear everything up. And they all stood up and said, "I bear witness that nothing has the right to be worshipped but Allah. And I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Now what you going to do about it?" They didn't do a single thing. They left him. You see, this is the honor of the Deen. This is how they gained honor, was through the Deen. Was through the Deen. When Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, brothers, if you want to learn how to become a man, a real man, study the life of a man named Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. This was a man's man. He was a manly man. He was the epitome of what a man should be after the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He was a man who did not mince his words. He was a man who spoke directly. He was a man of great stature and great respect even before Islam. But I want you to know something about Umar. The historians, the early historians of Islam said about Umar that had Umar not accepted Islam, he would have probably met his death very early on because he was an alcoholic. He was a drunk. And kidney failure and liver disease would have probably taken him out very early, and no one would have ever known who Umar was. His name would have died with his people. Now look, when we mention Umar, If you really know who Umar is, you will get chills mentioning his name. I have great love for Umar. He's one of the few people after the Prophet ﷺ, if I get to make it to Jannah, inshaAllah, I want to meet this man. If I have to wait a million years to get his audience. When Umar wanted to make hijrah to the Prophet ﷺ, all of the other Muslims fled in secret because of the fear that the Quraysh would catch them and either kill them or beat them into submission back to kufr. And this is one of the aspects, it was not a means of dishonor for them. Because the Prophet ﷺ said one of the greatest aspects of the Iman is that you detest going back to kufr just like you would hate to be thrown into a fire. So they saved their religion by fleeing. But when Umar ibn al-Khattab wanted to make hijrah to Medina, he put on his armor, he hung his sword around his neck, which is a semblance that he's ready for whatever. He walked to the Kaaba, started to make tawaf. As he was making tawaf, he was pointing to the leaders of Quraysh that I know you and you know me. May Allah darken your face in the dust. Insulting them. Every one of them insulted them. And then he stood up and said, I am Umar, the son of Al-Khattab, and I am preparing to make hijrah to the Prophet ﷺ in Medina. If any one of you wishes that their wives become widows, if any one of you wishes that your mother becomes bereaved over your grave and that your children become orphans, try to stop me. I dare you. And he walked out of the city of Mecca and no one bothered him. So this is the honor. And one last story and then we'll start. Last story. This same Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, during his Khilafah, he sent an army headed by Abu Ubaidah ibn al-Jarrah radiallahu anhu to take Al-Quds, Jerusalem, back into the hands of believers. And when Abu Ubaidah and his army encamped around the city of Jerusalem, you have to understand by this time, people knew far and wide who the Muslims were. Far and wide, their respect had traveled. So when they encamped around the city of Jerusalem and they saw who was sent, they decided just to submit. Look, there's no point in fighting these people. These people took down the greatest empires in the entire world. Don't even try it. But the leaders of Jerusalem said, we will not hand this city over to anyone. Not just to anyone, but we will hand it over to the best of you. So send us your Amir. And the Amir at that time was Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, a man whom the Prophet said about him, if there were going to be a messenger after me, it would have been Umar. It would have been Umar. Subhanallah. So they sent a letter to Umar, they want you to come. He took shura amongst his companions. They said, yeah, go, Allah will be with you. Now Umar was the leader of the believers, one of the greatest civilizations that the world has known. And he left the city of Medina alone with his servant and one camel. He didn't take a procession, he didn't take bodyguards, he didn't take an entire battalion. He left alone with his servant. And he rode the camel for a while, and the servant would pull. Then he would get down, the servant would ride, and he would pull, and then they would let the camel rest, as is the sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ. Now when he is approaching to Jerusalem, this is the Amir of all the Muslims. It was his turn to pull. And he didn't tell the servant, look, we're about to come and these people are going to give me the keys of the third greatest city in the planet. So let me ride. No. He said, it's your turn, you ride, I'm going to pull. And outside of the city of Jerusalem, there was a big mud field. And he walked right through it, dragging his garments, muddied it up. And this garment he was wearing was the same garment he always wore, that had patches on top of patches. So many patches. And when he arrived, Abu Ubaidah ran to him, radiallahu anhu, and said, Amir al-Mu'mineen, you know these people, they're used to pomp and circumstance from their rulers. You know, they're used to revelry and great processions and kings on thrones and this, that, and the third. I'm afraid if they see you in this condition, that they're not going to hand the keys to you. What do you think Umar's response was? Did he say, you know, you're right, you're probably right, you know, let me fix up a little bit? He punched Abu Ubaidah in the chest. And if Umar hit you, you knew it. Believe it. Abu Ubaidah said it hurt. If I knocked the wind out of him. And he said, Abu Ubaidah, I would not expect this from someone like you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored us. Before we were the most backwards people on the face of this planet, and Allah honored us with Islam. He said, Wallahi, if we seek honor in anything else other than Islam, Allah will humiliate us. Allah will humiliate us if we seek honor anywhere else. So I know. No. And when the people of Jerusalem saw that this was the Amir of the Muslims, their leader was like this, they handed over the keys willingly. They said, if this is their Amir, we have nothing to fear. They not only handed over the keys, they signed a contract with him. And they even asked him to come and pray in their church. They said, come and pray in our house of worship. And Umar said, no, respectfully, I refuse. Because if I do so, the Muslims will take this from you and turn it to a masjid. So he prayed outside. You see, brothers and sisters, this is where our honor is. Our honor is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. We're not going to get it from this dunya. We can't. You can't. You can't get it from this world. This world itself is humiliated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees this world as nothing. As nothing. But yet we see it as the end all and have all. And that's put us in such a predicament. In such a predicament. Is that we've forgotten everything. We've forgotten our history. We've forgotten to teach our children whom they follow in the footsteps of. We forgot to show them the great leaders and examples that we have. If you spent only a few moments of your life to study some of these great men and great women of Islam, you would be filled with such dignity and honor that no one would ever be able to take that from you. We are a people who strive for Jannah. We're trying our best to get to Jannah. But these people, Jannah strove for them. We ask Allah for Jannah, and Jannah asked for Abu Bakr. Radiallahu anhu. We will be lucky if we even get to see our place in Al-Jannah. But Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, the Prophet ﷺ said about him, that after the prophets and messengers, who were the greatest of mankind, the first person to enter into Jannah will be Abu Bakr. And when he is walking towards Al-Jannah, Al-Jannah is surrounded by 8 gates. 8 gates, and everyone will have a gate that they enter through. But for Abu Bakr, there is a guardian of every gate, an angel that guards it. Every one of those angels will be saying to Abu Bakr, "Oh Abu Bakr, give me the honor of you entering into my gates. Give me the honor of coming through my gates." SubhanAllah. This is what we are able to achieve. These were not prophets, these were not messengers, these were human beings, just like you and I. But their love for Allah and His Messenger took them to such great levels, that they have these type of honor and dignity till the end of time. To the end of time. They have the highest ranks in Al-Jannah because of their love for Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What are we doing with our lives? Wallahi, we're wasting it. We're wasting it. This life, we weren't put here to work for it. We're only to use it as a means to an end. We were put in this life to work for the next life. We were put here to work for the next life. We were created for Jannah. We were created for Akhirah. But we're going to have to be here for a little while, and we should make use of it. We should make use of it, inshallah. Now myself, I'm going to amend my story because it's quite long. But the video is all over the internet. If you want it, it's probably better than I'm going to be able to tell it. The only reason I don't mind telling it is because I like to remind myself of where I came from. It's a good reminder for me, because after 15 years, it's almost hard to remember a time when I was not a Muslim. It's very hard to remember. But when I remember that, I become very grateful, because I could still be out there. Allah could have just left me out there. I was born and raised in the South, in South Carolina. And one thing I will say about the South is I have great respect for the upbringing of the South. Great respect for it. Because in the South, for people who are traditionally Southern, you're raised with a certain standard of ethics. I was raised, as were many Southern people, to have manners before anything. Manners were the most important thing in my home. Everything I said or did was yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am, please, thank you, and that was it. If I spoke back to my grandmother, it was a death sentence waiting to happen. I grew up, my grandfather was full-blooded Native American Indian from the Cherokee tribe, whom I did not come to find out later were influenced by Islam. Muslims had been here to America. If you let the history tell you, if you let the history books that are produced in the West tell you, you'll never know these things. I've seen with my own two eyes Cherokee Indian graves in Maggie Valley, North Carolina, with the names Abdurrahman, with a crescent moon on it. I've seen this with my own two eyes. But unfortunately, when the British came, they suppressed the religion of the Native Americans, just like they did of the Muslim African slaves. And they started hiding their religion until it was hidden so far that they forgot it themselves. But my grandfather, I believe, learned many idioms from this. I grew up, my grandfather taught me discipline, like you would be taught the Quran. My grandfather used to hang a stick, the little switch, used to hang on the fireplace in my home all the time. It was used when it was needed, but because of the fact it hung there, it didn't have to be used that much. And I did not realize this was a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ as well. He said, hang the whip in your home. He didn't say beat anyone, he said hang it there, so that there will be known that there's discipline in the home. My grandfather was Irish, and my mother's side of the family is German, so there you go, that's my background. How I ended up with a Welsh last name, I don't know, I tried to do some research, couldn't find it. But I was raised in a Christian home, to be a good Christian, to go to church, to pray, to read the Bible, etc. And I wanted to grow up to be a youth minister, I wanted to be a minister, I wanted to be a missionary, I wanted to become a full-time pastor, I wanted to go to Bible college, and there is a very prestigious Bible college in my hometown called Bob Jones University that is well known amongst Christian academia. It's a very conservative, right-wing Christian university. Now, all of that changed in the summer of '96. In the summer of '96, I decided to read the Bible from cover to cover due to a challenge from my friend. Now, my reading through the Bible cover to cover is what led me away from Christianity. Just the first reading. Since then, I have read it at least 15 times, cover to cover. And I do not recommend that Muslims go and do this. This is something that is not beneficial for you. The Prophet ﷺ once saw Umar ibn al-Khattab reading the Torah that was at that time, which is not the revelation of Allah Azza wa Jalla, it's the book that the Jews have created. Parts of it could be from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet asked him, what are you doing? He said, I'm reading this. He said, what we have is better. What we have is better. So I do it because that's how I was raised. You know, it's something that I grew up reading, therefore I have an automatic connection between the gap between Christianity and Islam. So I have had scholars to tell me that it is okay for me. So this is why I will continue to go through the Bible. But if you've never picked up the Bible, you don't need to. We have the best revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only one that exists in its original form. But I read the Bible from cover to cover, and there were so many things that I saw that led me to make a decision to leave Christianity that we do not have the time for it. We don't. So I'm going to give you a few of the highlights, the major issues that I had with the Bible that really started to make me question my faith in Christianity. Now I'm going to make a disclaimer that these stories, I am going to tell them in a very vague way. In a very vague way. Two reasons. Number one, we are in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these stories, the way they are told verbatim, are not fit for the masjid at all. Number two, we have children in the building. And these stories, some of them are explicitly triple X rated. Triple X rated. And I'm not even joking. If I were to tell them verbatim, they should make the most unshy person shy. The first story that caused my attention was the story of Noah, or the story of Nuh alayhi salam. The Bible depicts, and if you want to know where these verses are, you can just go ask Sheikh, Maulana, Mufti, whatever you want to call it, Google. You all know Sheikh Google. He knows everything. He knows where you've been, where you're going, where you're coming from, where you need to go next. And if you have a smartphone that has Google on it, you know that. Pick up my phone and it's telling me that to get here take you 10 minutes. Someplace that I've been a long time. Why do you know I want to go there? Anyway, Google's taking over the world. You can Google these verses and you'll find them. I'm not going to tell them because I don't want these kids to go and find them. That's the reason why I'm not saying it. But there's a story in the Bible that says Noah, Nuh alayhi salam, one day became intoxicated, so intoxicated to the point that his sons found him in his home, passed out, completely naked. He partied hard. I'm sure you guys are used to that around here, yeah? He got wild, according to the biblical narrative. And his two sons found him that way and were very embarrassed. They covered their father and they ran. This caused me to have some problems, some questions, because it goes to the core of credibility. That yes, the Bible does depict that there can be sinful men who can be used for great purposes. But when it comes to the prophets and messengers, I was under the assumption there should be a different standard with them. Because if you find a man like this, if you went outside today, you walk by a man's home and you see him in this condition, and tomorrow he comes and tells you that Allah speaks to him and tells him to tell you such and third and fourth, what are you going to say? Are you serious? Then I see you like that, you sure it was Allah that spoke to you? Could have been your riding animal, could have been your cushions. When you're that intoxicated, trust me, you can remember a lot of things very differently. Or not remember anything at all. So it goes to credibility. But that wasn't a big issue. I didn't pay it much attention. I kept reading. Then there came the story of Lot, and I'm going to be very quick because I don't want to keep you too long, inshallah ta'ala. I know you want to eat, you want to have food, you want to do all of those nice things. The bride and groom got to cut the cake, things of this nature. So I'm not going to be very long, inshallah. But I'm going to have to say a few things or the story will not make too much sense. I came to the story of Lot, or Lut alayhi salam. He's not a prophet in the Bible. The Bible doesn't refer to him as a prophet. But we affirm him as a prophet, alayhi salam. But there's a story about Lot, apart from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, there's another story that's horrible. And that's the one I'm going to be very vague about. And it's the story of Lot and his two daughters. And the story is that their father was old. He had daughters but no son. And the daughters were worried about this. Why? Because if their father dies with no son, they have nobody. They have nobody. They have no protector. They have no guardian. So they decided to give him a son. Not by getting him another wife, because his wife was old and couldn't have children. But they got him intoxicated and they became pregnant by him. How would they do that? Why is this story even in the Bible, I asked? What's the take-home message of this? The only take-home message I was getting was that men and alcohol don't mix. Men and alcohol don't mix. I'm being told over and over again by my pastors and by people who represented Christianity that all of this was because Jesus had to come. That we could not be good, we could not be perfect, we could not be righteous. Therefore Jesus had to come and cover these sins with his blood because we would never make it. And that is the concept. I'll fast forward to the stories of Solomon and David. Suleiman wa Dawood. Now these stories are pretty despicable as well. The first of them is the greatest sin that can be committed by a human being against the Creator. The second is the greatest sin that can be performed against his creation. Solomon is reported in the Bible, the prophet, the king of Israel, to have worshipped idols. Due to one of his wives being an idol worshipper, a mushrika, she convinced him to worship idols, so he worshipped idols. Not only did he worship idols, but he built temples to worship idols. You'll find this right in the Bible. So Solomon is breaking rule number 1. Have no other God beside me. Not only that, but he's also helping. And my question was, this is only a problem, but it's a conundrum. Because the children of Israel had taken a covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Creator, upon a few things. Number 1, worship nothing but me. That was part of the covenant. Number 2, obey the prophets and messengers I sent to you. That was part of the covenant. If you do that, I will protect you and I will always look after you on earth. So what are the children of Israel supposed to do? Break the covenant and follow Solomon and worship idols, or break the covenant and disobey Solomon and don't worship idols? Either way, they have to disobey the covenant that was made with them. So this is an area of confusion. They have to break the covenant somehow. This is a problem. Then David, alayhi salam, in the Bible, is reported to have committed a very grievous act against humanity. He is reported to have seen a woman named Bathsheba who was extremely beautiful, and he decided he must have her. So he had her brought to him and he had her. Does anybody know what the problem was with that? This woman was married. This is a married woman. So David has committed the sin of what? Adultery, which is punishable by death, according to the very law which he's supposed to be upholding. It is punishable by death. Now, David didn't turn himself in and decide to go into the penalty of the law. He decided to fix the problem. The woman's husband was named Uriah. He was a soldier in the army. He called Uriah back from the front lines, told him, go be with your wife. So that if she was pregnant, say it came from him. And after that, David wrote a letter to the army saying that next time you have a battle, you put David on the front line, you tell everyone about this plan except him, and when the battle is fierce, everybody turn and run and leave Uriah by himself so that he will be killed, so that I can have this woman. Now, he decided to cover up the sin of adultery by the sin to commit murder, which is breaking another of the commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Now the worst treachery is whom David gives the letter to be delivered. Guess whom he gives it to? He gives it to Uriah. Poor Uriah. He makes the man deliver his own death sentence. He tells him, take this letter, don't open it, give it to your commanders. He makes him deliver his own death sentence and he's killed because of it. Now, for me, hold on one second. I came to a full stop now. I need to clarify some things. Because I'm starting to empathize with the children of Israel. Because they're painted and portrayed as being very rebellious. That they rebelled against the messengers, they rebelled against the law, against God. I'm starting to understand them now. If the Bible is true, then I get it. Trust me, I get it. Because Noah, I wouldn't let him babysit my 8-year-old son. I wouldn't leave him alone with my son. Lot, if he got anywhere near my daughter, I'd kill him myself. Now, David, I couldn't even invite that man into my home. Because if he saw my wife and decided that she was attractive, I might have to watch my back. So if that is your religion, keep that over there. How about that? You just keep that over there. We don't need any of that. So I understood the children of Israel. But again, I was being told that this is all because of the fulfillment of the life of Jesus, peace be upon him. And that this was the system at that time. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was trying to make us understand. Now, I had another question. I said, look, is not God the most knowledgeable? Doesn't he know everything? I said, yes. Because the Pauline concept, I don't like to call it the Christian concept because the word Christian means to be Christ-like. And that's not what we find in modern day Trinitarian Christianity. It's Pauline theology. Paul teaches that the law was not able to be followed, and that it was cursed, that it was not going to bring us to righteousness, therefore the law had to be done away with the life of Jesus. That this law, we couldn't follow it, and it was proof of the Old Testament that we couldn't follow. So my question was, did not the Creator know that we couldn't follow this law before sending it to us? Was this an experiment? I mean, was he playing with humanity? For thousands of years they were told to follow this law. Now all of a sudden Jesus is going to come and abolish it, and the system is totally different. So in the middle of everything, God decides, you know what, I'm going to do it different now. This didn't make sense to me. I said, what about all those people? Are they not going to be pretty angry when they are resurrected? That you made us follow this stupid law that you knew couldn't help us? What is this all about? Were they just screwed? You know, it was really problematic for me. Because I also, beyond faith, God gifted me with something called intellect, logic, reasoning, rational, understanding that could lead me to deduce certain things. And my logic wasn't working here. Logically, this was out of control. But I was told to keep reading. That what you were looking for is in the life of Jesus. That a story doesn't sometimes make sense until you finish it. My friend told me that a story, sometimes like a mystery or a crime novel, it doesn't make any sense until you finish it, until the conclusion. Little did he know that that would help me become a Muslim one day, when I found the conclusion, found the end of the story. So I continued reading to get to the New Testament, because where I was born and raised, you're a Christian. Full stop. That's it. You're a Christian. That's it. You profess yourself to be a Christian. I finished the Old Testament, but there was a few things that was very clear about the Old Testament. The most clear concept of the Old Testament is who is the Creator. There's no ambiguity about this. The Creator in the Old Testament does not speak in riddles. He doesn't speak allegorically. He doesn't speak ambiguously. I am God and there is none else. Hear, O Israel, I, the Lord, your God, am... Somebody finish this for me? One. I challenge anyone who does not believe in Islam, who might believe in the Bible, go find out what word is used in that verse for one. It's the Hebrew word ashad, which means one alone. No addition, no subtraction, no division. Alone, one that is different than everything else. It's not the Hebrew number one. We as Muslims have learned this. We know this. Because when we refer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we say, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. The Arabic word for one is wahid. But that wahid is not, it's not definite. It's an indefinite one, because it can be added to, subtracted from, multiplied, divided, all of these nonsense. You can take wahid and make a thing, all this, but the word ahad signifies a oneness that is unique and alone, that is reserved for Allah alone, cannot be added to, cannot be subtracted from, cannot be divided. Also, what was very clear about the Old Testament was what God wanted from humanity. He wanted two things only. He wanted to be worshipped and obeyed. He wanted you to worship Him alone, and He wanted you to obey Him alone. Simple. Worship Him and obey Him and you'll go to heaven. And if you screw that up, repent, fix your mistake. And there was something very beautiful at the end of the Old Testament in the book called Malachi. One of the very last verses of the Old Testament says something. It says, and this is reported to be the speech of the Creator, it says, I do not change. I do not change. And we find this in the Quran as well, and we find this in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that in the sunnah of Allah there is no alteration, there's no change, that Allah doesn't change. And then He said, therefore the sons of Jacob, Bani Yaqub, who was also named Israel, Bani Israel, therefore because I don't change, I haven't destroyed you. You've rebelled against me, but I made a covenant that I would never take you off this earth. So they will continue to exist. Now, I went into the New Testament, and it's too long to deduce. I have left all of that on the DVDs outside, which I'll talk about at the end, all the verses and etc. that you want to see and want to know. But what I come to realize, and this is something I have implored all Christians to do. I've implored them to do a couple of things, because I read through the entire New Testament once, and then I went back, and I did something. I had a Bible called the Red Letter Edition Bible. And Red Letter Edition means that the words in red are the words of Jesus, peace be upon him, reportedly. But there's a huge problem in this. And I'm going to be about 15 minutes. It's okay? It's going to take me about 15 minutes. The words of Jesus are in red, reportedly. But it's problematic because we're reading in the English language. which is translated over from the Greek, which is not the language Jesus spoke. Jesus spoke a language known as Aramaic. Aramaic is a Semitic language. You can't translate Semitic languages. You can only interpret them. You can only interpret them. So whoever wrote the Greek of what Jesus said would have been interpreting what they thought Jesus meant by what he said. And then whoever interpreted from the Greek to English did the same thing. They interpreted, they didn't translate. So what we have is an interpretation of what Jesus may or may not have said. But even in that, Jesus taught the same thing that the God of the Old Testament taught. God was one, he needed to be worshipped and obeyed. And I have been challenging for 15 years anyone to prove anything different than that clearly. Find me a verse where Jesus says, like God of the Old Testament says, I am God, worship me. Doesn't exist. But I found Jesus to be the same as I found all of the other teachings of the Creator. And what I found was that the entire religion of Christianity, Trinitarian Christianity, is based on the teachings of Paul. In its entirety. And anything that Jesus said is interpreted by what Paul taught. And that's a crime and injustice to what Jesus, peace be upon him, was about. But there were many contradictions and conflicts within the New Testament. And I have written on my website, if you go to yushaevans.com, I've written at least 100 so far. Complete, blatant contradictions and conflicts within the New Testament. So one thing that I knew was that God is perfect. Correct? Do we agree with me on that? God is perfect. Therefore, anything that comes from God will be what? Perfect. If the Bible was not perfect, it was not from God. It was from man. And if God had a religion, it would be perfect. And it would be simple. There's no way for me to explain the Trinity to my 8-year-old son. He wouldn't even grasp it. I even asked him one day, son, if I told you that 1 plus 1 plus 1, if you add those together, it also equals 1. He's like, no, it doesn't equal 1, that's 3. That's 3. No, but it can be 1 if you believe it to be 1. He said, no, it's always going to be 3. I can't explain Trinity to him. And Trinity can't be explained at all by anybody, not in its full context. But Islam, I've explained to my son, he's known since he was 3, that Allah is one, we worship Him alone. Simple, point blank. So I ended up leaving Christianity to look for what I thought to be the truth. I knew that God existed because of what He's created. It's very simple. My grandfather, one of the idioms that he taught me at a very young age, which I learned was great wisdom, he told me, son, and he always called me son, he said, there is no painting without a painter. There is no painting without a painter. That if you look around you, it's enough evidence to know that we were created. There is no design without a designer. There's no effect without a cause. This is reality. So I wanted to know the truth, but I wanted something specific. And this is what I want specifically. I wanted proof. Because another thing my grandfather taught me, and he used to always do this when he knew I was lying, he would say, there's something unique about the truth. You know what it is? And I would say, what? He said, it always comes with proof. You can prove the truth. So if you are telling the truth, you should get a proof. So I wanted proof now. But I didn't want your proof out of your mouth. I wanted something tangible. If God exists, when He sent prophets and messengers, He sent them with tangible signs. Moses split the Red Sea. Jesus healed the sick, the blind, brought the dead to life. There was physical proof for the fact that they were who they said they were. So if your religion is what you say it is, it should have some tangible proof that I can look at. So I was given the proof of the other world's religions, Judaism, the Torah, the Talmud, and some other things. Same thing I found in Christianity. It was some truth mixed with some things that you just had to believe. You had to turn off your logic and just believe it. And no one would do that in your normal life. No one. I wouldn't go outside and have a Pinto, which is the world's, worst car ever created, voted as the world's worst car. I tell you that I have a Mercedes SL 550 AMG that I want to sell you for $500. You'd be like, yeah, let's go. Take you outside and show you a Pinto. You're like, hold on, man, this is not It's not a, but I tell you, look, it can be a Mercedes if you believe. If you believe hard enough, it'll be just like driving a Mercedes. You're gonna slap it. You must be out of your mind. We wouldn't take that logic in anything. I studied Hinduism, read some of the Vedas, but you can't read the whole Vedas in a lifetime. There are a bunch of the Bhagavad Gita. To me, it was like a sci-fi novel. If you've ever read any of the Vedas, this god is warring with that god, and they have weapons of mass destruction and heat-seeking missiles. And there's this one weapon that is not allowed to be used because it would destroy the entire creation. It was interesting. It was a good read, but it was entertaining. But I couldn't believe that. It was just a bit beyond me. I studied Taoism, Buddhism, Wiccan, Bushido, all of that. But their proofs did not live up. And I don't have the time to give you the reason why, but they didn't. But it was just like taking 10 cups of water, put them in front of me. If you blindfolded me and put sour milk in 9 of the glasses, how many sips of those glasses of sour milk would it take for me to realize it's sour? One sip. Who's the fool? The one who drinks the cup all the way to the end thinking that I believe hard enough this will be water, or the one who puts the cup down and looks for the clean glass? I read a book about Islam that said that Muslims worship the moon god who lived in a box in the desert in Saudi Arabia. They beat their wives as a hobby. It was commanded to them. And that the greatest thing that a Muslim could do was to kill a non-Muslim and didn't even get virgins when he went to heaven. I didn't care what proof you guys had. Didn't matter. So I left religion and went into the streets. I made the streets my religion because I said, God, I'm looking for you and you don't want to be found. I'm looking for a God that doesn't want to be found. So I had made up my mind that God had written us off. That we were at the end of times and that therefore we were written off and we just had to get in when we fit in. Basically. So I decided to make the streets my religion, and I became part of hip-hop culture. Now for our young brothers and sisters, let me tell you something about hip-hop. It's more than music. And if you think it's just music, you're fooling nobody. There is an entire culture about hip-hop. There's a way you dress in hip-hop, there's a way you talk, a way you act, a way you carry yourself, a demeanor, and none of it is becoming of a Muslim. None of it. But I wanted to be a gangster, thug life. In 97, Tupac had just died, Biggie had just gotten shot. Hip-hop was becoming prevalent in the South through Outkast and Goody Mob. And if you don't know who these people are, don't go look them up. But I became involved in the hip-hop lifestyle. Wanted to be a proper gangster. And let me tell you something about real gangsters. You don't know what you're doing until you meet one. You don't know what a real gangster is. None of you are gangsters. You're not going to be a gangster. But there were two things that happened, so I can speak to the end, that changed my life. I decided I didn't want to be a gangster anymore. Number one, I got into a car accident that I shouldn't have lived from. We completely destroyed a car, intoxicated, flipped it, wrecked it, tore it into pieces, and walked away. I got a scratch on my arm from it. That's it. Where a piece of a bottle went into my arm. And the police officer that came told me, young man, the only reason you're alive today is because God willed for you to live. That means He has a purpose for your life. And you better figure it out. I didn't think God had a purpose for my life because I had lived for Him for a very long time. But a couple of weeks after that, I went to New York City because I wanted to see where hip-hop was born. I wanted to go to Brooklyn. I wanted to go to Bedford-Stuyvesant, where the roots of hip-hop are from. So I went to New York City, into Brooklyn, and I went to an ATM machine, and I met my first gangster. I went to the ATM machine and took out some money, turned around, met my first gangster. This gangster introduced himself by putting a revolver in my face. That's how gangsters roll. That's real gangster. That's how gangsters do it. And he, in true gangster fashion, he didn't say anything. He didn't say, put your hands up, give me the money. It's not how gangsters do it. He pulled the trigger. That's how gangsters do it. Blow this kid's head off, take the money and run. That happens every few minutes in New York City, especially in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, and Bedford-Stuyvesant. I lived there for a while. I lived in New York. This happens regularly. I would have been just another guy, white guy, killed in Brooklyn. That was it. But the gun didn't go off for whatever reason, physical reason. It was the qadr of Allah. It was the will of the Creator. I got into a fight with him because at that time I had my first black belt in martial arts. Thought I was Bruce Lee reincarnated. picked that up from Hinduism. And I got into a fight with him and threw him through the glass window of the ATM machine, and I took off. And decided that was the end of the gangster life for me. I wanted to be a better person. So I decided to try to be a better person. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do. I ended up meeting a Muslim. And this is how we're going to draw it to an end. I ended up meeting a Muslim. I had known this Muslim for a while. Never knew he was a Muslim. The book said all Muslims are Arab. He was African American. He was from New York. His name was Musa. But I did not know that African Americans could be Muslim, and I never would have expected that the local cannabis salesman of my hometown would be Muslim. He was the weed man. That's what he did. He was the dope guy. Anyway, one day I was at his house, and I didn't even see him pull out a rug and pray before, but I thought he practiced Santeria, which is a religion mixed with Catholicism and witchcraft that a lot of drug dealers use to try to, put spells to keep police away from him and such of that thing. But we went to his house. I used to go to his house every day after school. He also was a budding hip-hop artist. He had turntables in the middle of his room in his house and a big circle couch around it, and we used to sit in ciphers. If you don't know what a cipher is, don't look that up either. You shouldn't even know what a cipher is. But I used to sit in the ciphers. One day we were sitting around and the issue of religion came up, and I had made the statement that there was no religion anymore, that the true religion was unknown, and that God was done with humanity until the day of judgment. Now, he came out of the room, and in his New York lingo, in his New York accent, he said, "Yo, son, you ever heard about Islam, son?" I was like, "Yeah, son, heard all about Islam, son. Those bleeps." He was like, whoa, take it easy. I'm a Muslim, that's insulting. I was like, this is some good stuff you got right here, man. You think you're a Muslim? I was like, no, dude, I'm not talking about Nation of Islam. That's what I thought all African American Muslims were. I'm not talking about 5%ers. And for those of you who are running around saying that hip-hop artists, these guys are Muslim, most of them are 5%ers. And a 5%er thinks that they are Allah. Astaghfirullah. They think Allah stands for arm, leg, arm, head. And I'm not joking. So be careful on who you call a Muslim. Hebrew Israelites call themselves Muslims as well. But I said, I'm talking about those Arab raghead, camel jockey Muslims. He's like, dude, you need to stop right now. So we have a problem. He said, I'm one of those Muslims. I'm a Sunni Muslim. And I read from the book that there were Sunni and Shia Muslims, but they killed each other too. I said, dude, you can't be a Muslim, you're black. He's like, be careful how you throw around that black word in here. He said, I think I know I'm black. I look in the mirror. I said, you can't be. He said, I'm a real Muslim. He said, the minority of Muslims are Arabs. There's a minority of Muslims who are Arabs. They make up a small percentage of the Muslim world. I said, okay. He said, what do you know about Islam? I told him. He said, you're an idiot. I said, tell me about Islam then, son. He said, I can't. I said, why not? This is Freemasonry? I come from a family of Freemasons, by the way. I said, do I need to go to the, to the temple and, do some rituals and spin around and look at the skulls and, all this nonsense? He said, no. I can't tell you about Islam because I'm not a good Muslim. He said, look around you. I'm not a good Muslim. He said, but I can take you to a place where they can. Come with me on the mosque. Come with me to the mosque on Friday for Jummah. I said, you lost me after Friday. I don't know what a mosque or Jummah is. He said, a mosque is like a church, and Jummah is like church service, but we have it on Friday. There's no chairs, you sit on the floor. I said, no problem. He said, come on Friday. Now I said, where is the mosque? Because there's not one in my hometown. I knew there wasn't one in Greenville, South Carolina. No way, I lived here my whole life. He said, it's on Wade Hampton Boulevard. I was like, dude, at first I thought you were serious. I live off Wade Hampton Boulevard. There's no mosque on Wade Hampton Boulevard, trust me, son. He said, it's on the corner of Wade Hampton and Lee Road. I was like, man, get out of here, man. Do you know where I live? He's like, nah. I said, I live on the corner of Wade Hampton and Lee Road. There's no mosque. There's two churches on my street. There's one on one end and one on the other end. That's it. He said, yes. And if you want to go look on Google Earth, look up Islamic Society of Greenville. He said, on the corner of Wade Hampton, there's a church that trains people to become missionaries. I said, yes, I've been to that church. He said, in the same parking lot The church is facing this way, and there's another building facing this way, and they share the parking lot. And there's a little walkway between the two. He said, there's a brick building next to the church. I said, yeah, the gym? Because I thought that was the gym, because all churches, most of them have gyms. He said, no, that's the mosque. I said, get out of here. You mean to tell me there's a terrorist training facility at the end of my street? And I never knew about it? No. He said, yeah. I said, if there is one there, I'll see you on Friday. So I left, and I went home and stopped by this building. There was no sign on the outside, really. It had just been rebuilt because it had been burned down. But I walked to the door, and there's this little bitty sign on the door that says Islamic Society of Greenville. I said, I'll be Greenville. There is a terrorist training facility on the end of my road. What's going on here? You couldn't see in the building because the windows were like this, all on the top. And the door was frosted, the glass door was frosted, so you couldn't see through it. So I said, okay, I'm coming back on Friday. I came back on Friday, and I sat outside the church. You know why? I'm not running up in no mosque by myself. Are you serious? The gangster life teaches you a few things. One of them is you don't run up in a building where you know or come to have known that people love to kill you. You just don't do it. I said, if Musa goes in there and they don't kill him, and he can come back out and get me, then I'll go in. And I also wanted to see who went into the building. And guess who I saw going into the building? 1 Arab, 2 Arab, 3 Arab, 4, 5 Arab, 6 Arab, 7 Arabs more. There was nothing but Arabs going in that building. Now, mind you, it was a mix. Sure, it was probably some of our Desi brothers, mashallah. But at that time, you all look the same. There's two types of people in the South. There are Americans, and there's everybody else. And you guys are everybody else. I didn't see one of me going there. It was none of us. So I said, so far, this book looks pretty right. Musa's not showing up yet, and I'm paging him. Cell phones weren't really that big back in '98. I'm paging him, and he's not answering. And I come to find out later that the reason why was because he got arrested for selling marijuana. I've never seen him again to this day. I don't even know his name, his real name. But let me tell you something, Allah knows who he is. And even though he was a drug dealer, even though he sold marijuana for a living, he's the reason I'm sitting here today. If he did not have an excuse, none of you have an excuse. He's getting every single good deed I perform, he's getting an equal equivalent to it. That will be with him on the day of judgment. And anyone who I've helped to come to Islam, he's getting their reward. And anyone who I've encouraged to do an act of good through any lecture or video that I've done, he's getting the reward for it. So he's going to end up having more good deeds than I will on the day he meets Allah. This is da'wah. This is da'wah. Now, I was about to leave, and a man pulls up, and I'm done in 5 minutes. I'm done in 5 minutes. The cake is not going to much inshallah. There was a man who pulled up, and he got out of his car, and I almost fell over laughing. I laughed a good, hard laugh that time. Because this guy got out, and he's dressed the most conflicting way. He gets out, he has a nice beard, which in the South, we have beards. Beards, men have beards. It's just a respectable thing. If any of you have seen Duck Dynasty, you know, beards are back. The beards are back. If you ever watched Duck Dynasty, don't waste your time. But they brought the beard back. Beards are back in style. There was even a report in Philadelphia that there is a rise in beard transplants. People are getting beard transplants. But he's wearing a beard, but he's wearing a dress. Oh my. This guy's got a dress on. There's two things that you never mix together. Is a beard and a dress. Men don't wear dresses in the South. That is a death sentence. My father and grandfather used to always threaten me with that. When I wanted to get earrings, I wanted to get an earring in my ear when I was 16, my father said, if you do so, I will tear up all your clothes and make you wear a dress to school. That was enough for me. If I wore a dress to school, it would have been the end of my life as I knew it. This guy's wearing a dress and he's got a beard. He said, okay, look at this weirdo. What camel he just get off of? And I know he's Arab. He looks at me and says, can I help you? In plain English. I was shocked. He speaks English. So I said, yeah, Musa invited me to your Jummah service. He said, oh yes, we know Musa. Don't be surprised if he doesn't come. Guess they really knew Musa. He said, but come in, we're so happy to have you. Automatically I had some suspicion. This guy's too happy. He's too happy to see me. He's too happy to get me to come into this building. But I had only seen some old men going, I can handle 2 or 3 of them. I'm not worried. So I go in and they give me a chair in the back of the room. I'm the only person sitting on the chair, which also felt very weird. Only person sitting on the chair, what am I doing? And there's a curtain going from wall to wall. And I hear women chattering behind the curtain. I didn't see them come in because the women's entrance was on the other side, and I couldn't see it from where I was sitting. I'm like, where did these women come from and why are they behind the curtain? What are they doing back there? And then I thought, the beatings, probably, gotta keep them covered up. It's not permissible to beat your wife in America, you can't go to jail for that. And I also remember there's a movie that I watched with my grandfather called Lawrence in Arabia. And there are tents in the desert where they have women. I'm not gonna go too far with that one. But I said to myself, man, what are you doing here, man? All these guys are in front of me talking in language that I can't understand. They're looking at me, talking in their language, and I'm like, I wonder what they're saying. Then I'm about to leave, because I'm thinking to myself, why did Musa tell me to come here, and he didn't come? What is this? Then I start realizing, wait a second, Musa's not the most trustworthy individual I've known in my life. He sold you to these Arabs. He set you up. These Arabs have bought you to do their little jihad after their Jummah, get their virgins off of you. You're the sacrificial lamb here today. There's an 18-year-old mind running crazy. I said, wait, oh no. I live right, I can see my house if there was a window. I live right here. I'm not dying here today, so I'm leaving, I'm out. So I go to get up, and everybody gets quiet. So I sit back down. But I realized the reason they got quiet because the man who invited me in was standing on some stairs in the front of the room. So I knew the service was about to start. So I figured when the service started, I'm going to walk to the bathroom because between me and the front door were all these brothers. And the bathroom is by the front door, so I'm going to the bathroom and I'm going to take a quick ride and be out. That's it, I'm out of here. Because the first thing he's going to say is not going to be, let's kill the American man. That's surely not how it's going to start. So he gets up on the stairs and he starts. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله. I'm like, oh my God, he is telling me to kill him straight away. Because this same soft-spoken guy is screaming now. He's pounding on the thing and he's pointing at me. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد. I'm thinking to myself, the translation, let's kill the dirty American and get our virgins. I'm freaking out now. The only thing that was missing was the curtain to come flying back and the women to start going. I knew that was coming. That was coming. And that's when the swords are coming out. You better get the heck out of here before that happens. So my exit strategy now is I see a couple of old uncles sitting in front of me. I'm going to knock him out. Because if I knock him out, I guarantee everybody's going to pause for at least half a second. That's enough. That's all I need. I'm quick. I'm out. I'm going to knock him out and run. Can you imagine if I did that? That would have been a story they would have told forever. There's this white guy came into the masjid, he knocked him out, they would have called me every name in the book. So, as I'm about to get the nerve up to knock this poor uncle out, the Imam stops screaming and he starts translating. All praise belongs to the one true creator of all that exists. We praise him and him alone. We seek his help and his help alone. We seek his assistance and his assistance alone. We seek refuge with the Creator from the evil that lies within our own souls and our sinful actions. Whomsoever is guided towards the truth cannot be misguided from it. And whomsoever is led away from the truth cannot be guided back to it except by his Creator. And I bear witness that nothing has the right to be worshipped except the one Creator of the heavens and the earth, who is alone and he shares no partnership with anyone. And I bear witness that Muhammad is indeed the messenger. O you who believe, fear Allah as he should be feared, and do not die unless you have submitted your will to him. O mankind, fear your guardian Lord who created you from one soul, and from that soul its mate, and from those two spread the rest of humanity. And fear the Creator from whom you demand your mutual rights to the ties of kinship, and give reverence and respect to the womb that bore you. For surely your Creator sees everything that you do. O you who believe, fear your Creator as He should be feared and speak the truth. For by doing so, you will be forgiven of your sins and guided towards righteous actions. And whomsoever fears the Creator and His last messenger, they have already achieved the greatest achievement. These were profound words. These words caught my attention. I was shocked that Muslims would say something like this. So I listened to the khutbah on that day, and it was about the forgiveness of Allah. That Allah is so forgiving that we do not possess the capacity to understand it. And that even if we were to meet Him, and I don't have the time to give it all to you, I did it yesterday here in the masjid. Even if you were to meet Him with enough sins that would fill the earth and everything that is in it, if you meet your Lord, having worshipped nothing but Him alone, and repented to Him and expecting good from Him, you will find a Lord who has a forgiveness the like of which you have sinned. Because the Creator said in a hadith al-Qudsi, I am as my slave perceives me to be. I am as my servant perceives me. So I was told that the forgiveness of the Creator was open to anyone, at any time, at any place. That all you had to do was turn back to the one who created you and ask Him to forgive you, and He would forgive you. You see, I had heard this before from the God of the Old Testament. And this was something I was looking for. I was looking for a way to come back to my Creator. But His words weren't going to convince me. So after the sermon, the Muslims prayed, which I realized was not prayer. Prayer is an incorrect word for salah. Salah is worship, pure worship. Now, after the salah, the Imam came to me and said, you know, Islam is based on 5 pillars and 6 beliefs. I said, before you even start, let me tell you something. Nothing you're going to say is going to convince me, even if it's very good. Because I've heard a lot. I said, but there is one thing that I will ask of you that will give me everything I need to know. Do you have proof? Do you have proof that you could give to me that is tangible, that proves that your way of life is what you say it is? He said, absolutely. Come with me. So he took me to his office and he pulled a book off the shelf and handed it to me. It was one of those blue Qur'ans from Saudi Arabia. It said the Noble Qur'an on the back. I said, what is this? He said, this is the book of God. I said, yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah. Then he started to try to tell me about the Qur'an. I said, if your book is what you say it is, you don't need to sell it to me. Let it speak for itself. If it's what you say it is, it'll do all the speaking it needs to do. If this is the word of God, you don't need to support it with anything. So I took the Qur'an home and started to read it. And what did I find? I found the greatest book I had ever laid my eyes on. I found a book that taught that God is one and worship Him alone. I found a book that taught that God needed to be obeyed. I found a book that taught about Noah, that talked about Lot, that talked about David, that talked about Solomon, that talked about Jesus. But it said that these men were the greatest men that walked the face of the earth. And not only did they preach the message, but they were the first to live by it, but they were nothing more than men. Their worship was to the Creator alone. And that this book challenged me that if I had any doubt about it, that if I was any doubt about this book, then prove it wrong. Discredit it, find a contradiction, find an error, find a mistake. The beginning of it in chapter 2, verse 2 said, this is the book that has no doubt in it. And it is a guidance for those who fear the Creator. To make a long story, it's been too long short. By the time I put down the Quran, I could only say one thing. This was the book from the Creator. This was it. I found it. After all this time, and I even got down on my hands and knees in my room and I said, God, I never thought I'd find you here. Let me tell you that right now. This will be the last place I would look for you. But here I am and here you are. And I am willing to accept whatever you want. If you want me to be a Muslim, I'll be a Muslim. So I went back to the masjid the next day, knocked on the Imam's door who lived behind the masjid, and I said, I want to be a Muslim. He was shocked. I said, why? I said, because your book is what you say it is. It is what you say it is. It did its own justification. He said, in order to be a Muslim, you must believe 2 things. You must believe there's no God worthy of worship except the one who created the heavens and the earth. I said, I've always believed that, even though Paul screwed me up for a bit. He said, you also need to believe that Muhammad is a messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I said, I have one question for you about Muhammad that will tell me everything I need to know. He said, really, just one? I said, just one. He said, what is that? I said, did he give us this book? Did he give us this book? He said, yes. I said that he is who he says he is. He is who he says he is if he gave us this book. So I took my shahada in December of 1998. December of 1998. But I didn't tell you my story to entertain you. I'm not an entertainer. I told you my story so that you could realize that there are a lot of people just like me in Tucson, Arizona in 1998 looking for the truth. There are a lot of people that are lost just like me. But unfortunately, I lived across the street from you and I had to seek you out. No one came to seek me out. We have to do a better job. We have to do a better job. Look at where this masjid is situated. You guys have a pristine opportunity. You're situated in the middle of everything. If the community around this masjid is not better because of it, then you do not have a masjid. You have a building. You have a building that you gather in. It's a social gathering, a social club. Because a masjid is the hub of guidance. It's where guidance starts. The Prophet ﷺ, when moving to Medina, established the masjid first, and from there spread the religion of Islam. So if this building does not become a hub for guidance for the people of Tucson, then you will have a grievous questioning when you stand in front of the one who created you. Have no doubt about that fact. No doubt about it, no doubt. Because you're responsible for those people. They're irresponsible because they don't know what they're doing. They are not knowing what's going on. But you're responsible because you possess the truth. A Quran is not going to fall from the sky and hit them in the head. Allah is not going to write in the clouds, believe in me. Angels are not going to come talk to these people. No more messengers are coming. So who's going to give the message to them? Who's going to give it to them? That's your job. Allah is the source of guidance, but He has left a responsibility of conveying the message to you. To you. We have work to do. We have work to do. If the world does not know about Islam, there is no one we can blame but us. We gotta stop blaming the media. The media is doing what the media has done for ever since media existed. Sell whatever they can sell. We can't blame the non-Muslims anymore because they don't know better. We can't blame Shaitan because Shaitan is going to disavow himself from blame on the day that he stands in front of Allah. The only people we can blame are the people who look at us when we're brushing our teeth in the morning. Us. We are the problem. If people ask me what is the problem with the Muslims today, I say us. We're the problem. We're our own problem. I'll finish with this and give you a very small advice. The Prophet ﷺ made 3 du'as to Allah. 2 of them were granted to him. 1 of them was not granted to him. And it's a great lesson for us to learn. He said, I asked Allah, my Lord, do not let my ummah be destroyed by its enemies. And he said, Allah granted me that. We can never be destroyed by those who oppose us. Never. That's not going to happen. We need to stop fearing our enemies. He said, number 2, I asked Allah to not allow my ummah to be destroyed by famine. I mean, starving us all to death. He said, Allah granted me that. So we don't have to worry about that one. Even though Muslims are starving, it means the entire ummah will not be wiped out. He said, thirdly, I asked Allah, oh Allah, do not allow my ummah to destroy themselves by fighting with each other. He said, Allah did not grant me that. We are our own destruction. We are our own destruction. We need to wake up. We cannot begin to beautify the message of Islam with our words. We beautify it with our akhlaq. As Umar ibn al-Khattab said, that the best da'wah you will do is the da'wah of your mannerism. The da'wah of who you are as a Muslim. So that people will be enticed to be like you. If these Muslims act like this, then there's something that's beneficial in what they have. They'll at least look at it. Right now, we look like chickens with our heads cut off. Running around, bleeding to death. This is what we're doing. We need to wake up and we need to get involved in helping our community. We need to get involved in social activism again. The companions were involved in changing the society they lived in. They were involved in bettering the world around them, not in bettering their own world. We need to get involved. If the world today does not see what we have to benefit, we blame ourselves. What are you going to do, brothers and sisters, if America woke up tomorrow and decided they did not want you here anymore? If a poll was taken, a vote was taken, whether Islam should be banned in America or not, and the Muslims to be expelled from the United States, and they voted to do so, what are you going to do? There would be nobody you could blame but you, because they're not seeing our benefit. They're not seeing the contribution that we're able to make, because we only care about contributing to our own benefit. And this is not the example of a believer. This is not the example of a believer. A believer is beneficial to everything and everyone he comes in or she comes in contact with. That is the reality of the believer. They benefit everywhere they walked on. How many Muslims are in America? And I'm bringing it to a close. How many Muslims in America? Roughly.
10 million.
10 million on a conservative scale. You mean to tell me that there's 10 million of us in this country, and this country is not better because of us? That's a shame on us. It only took one companion of the Prophet ﷺ to put his feet on foreign soil, and that place was better because of him. That place would be better because of him alone, one. 10 million of us, and look at this. Look at it. Look at America going to hell in a handbasket. And we're not doing nothing about it. We have a problem. And our problem is that we have just become complacent. We care about nothing but nafsi, 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 myself, myself, myself. Let that concern be your concern on the day you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then you'll be able to say nafsi, 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 myself, myself, myself. But while you're here, worry about them as well, because you're responsible for them. Now lastly, as you leave today, because I'm going to be departing, I'll stay around for some cake, but I'm leaving. I've been going honestly non-stop. I've been on the road non-stop for almost 3 months now. I spent about 5 days at home total. So I rest as much as I can. I'm off to Australia on Monday as well. So make dua for me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me the energy to be able to keep going. While we're young, we work, take advantage of take advantage of 5 before 5. One is your health and your youth before your old age and sickness. So when you go outside today, for those of you who are German, you know, but for those of you who are not, I've brought a table of DVDs. Now, these DVDs are a project that I've been working on for 7 years, to share the message of Islam in the simple English language in an audio plus visual format. And many of you complain to me that, yeah, I want to get involved in dawah. You've convinced me, but I don't know how. And that's a problem as well. Because something that Allah has given you as a command, you're not allowed to be ignorant of it. Just like salah. If Allah has commanded me to pray, but I say I haven't prayed in 15 years because I don't know how, am I excused from salah? No, because I've had ample time to learn. So if you don't know a command, you must learn that command in order to fulfill it. So if da'wah is a command, learning da'wah is a command. These two go hand in hand. This is the sharia, it's the law of Allah. But I've tried to make it easy for you, so that you can be at least sleep with a conscience. I know you have the capacity to hand a DVD to someone and say, here's some information about Islam. If you watch it, it'll be beneficial for you. And if you have questions, the guy on the video gives his contact information. You can question him, or you can come back to me and I'll try to find the answer for you. You can at least open your mouth. You have enough. The Prophet ﷺ said, convey for me even if it's one verse. Now, I've been giving away 10,000 of these DVDs twice a year. 10,000. This is a full-time thing that goes on in my house. We have machines running day and night, day and night. You don't even know what my power bill is. But the only way I'm able to continue this project is through the support of the Muslims. What I do is I take these DVDs around to the different masajid that I go to in the world, in the conferences, and I sell them to Muslims. One DVD for $10. It's actually pretty cheap for a DVD. That has no copyright on it. You can copy it and copy it and copy it and copy it until you destroy your machine for copying, which I've done time and time again. There's no copyright on it. And when you buy one DVD, I make 2. One of them I give away on your behalf. So I get rewarded for that and you get rewarded for that. And the second one I put on the table to be sold again. And then that multiplies the other DVDs that go. So the reward just continues to continue. You see, I'm in business for the akhirah. I have a martial arts business, which is what allows me to be able to do what I do. But my business is to benefit myself on the day I meet the one who created me. That's my business. That's my job. That's what I try to do. So, and whatever money is left over from that $10, after making those 2 DVDs, we put it towards the other projects Like right now we have a project, myself and a dear brother of mine, Yusha, we have a TV project that is going on in the country right now. It's being broadcast in a number of cities. We're trying to broadcast it nationally. And it takes a lot of money. Did he ever come here and tell you about God's TV? Yeah. Then he probably told you about how much money it costs. You might as well be just as beneficial to go out in your backyard, dig a hole and throw money. That's the way TV works. It's throwing money away. We even have a couple of cities that are ready to shut us down because we're behind on the link bill. And I'm trying to launch a global channel for our youth. Because one thing that's left out is our youth. Our youth have been left out for far too long. So I'm trying to make a global channel for our youth to bring them back to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remind them about their past, to remind them about the great men and women that they follow in the legacy of, and etc., etc., etc. That also costs thousands and thousands of dollars. So whatever is left goes to those projects. So please, I behest you and behoove you. I'm going to stay around about 15-20 minutes inshaAllah ta'ala. So please come out to that table. I only have 60 DVDs left. Don't make me take them home because there's another batch waiting at home to be sent out and to go with me to Australia. Please come and buy one. And if you want to support the project, then if you can give more than $10 for the DVD, do so. Then I'll make more DVDs and we'll put more towards the projects that you'll get rewarded for inshaAllah ta'ala. And we will take all the help that we can get. And it's greatly needed. But at least come and buy one of these DVDs and copy it and hand it. Help yourself and help me too. I'm greedy for good deeds, but I don't mind you sharing them with me at all. Because I love for my brother what I love for myself. Inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and continue us on the straight path. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq, the ability to share this message of Islam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give this ummah dignity and honor once again, and respect in the eyes of the world. And for my brother, is the brother here that got married, or is he already? He's hanging about, maybe he can hear me. I want to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless him and to bless his family and make that marriage a means of being pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why we get married, to please Allah Azza wa Jal, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we also have to remember that marriage is something that is worked on. It's something that is worked on every single day. Every single day. It's not bliss. That's just not the way it is. You have two people that are now stuck living with each other all the time. And that's going to cause conflicts. It's always going to be that way. But when in a marriage you try to remember that this marriage was established to please Allah, then those difficulties can be worked through, insha'Allah ta'ala. So try to remember that every single day. And brothers, try to remember that your wife, I'm going to give advice to the brothers and advice to the sisters. A great grand advice that was given to me by Sheikh Hafidhullah ta'ala from Medina, one of the men who is the most knowledgeable of the Quran that exists in the world today. He said, brothers, your wife, what she wants from you more than anything is your affection. She wants your affection. She wants to know that you love her. Show that to her every single day. You will find a wife that is happy to please you as well. She wants your affection. Am I wrong, sisters? You want to be shown affection. You want to be shown love. You want to be shown consideration. This is what the sisters want. And sisters, what your husband wants from you is respect. He wants to be respected. He wants to be shown that he matters. This is what men crave. Am I right, brothers? We want to be shown that we matter. We don't want to be the mule that just pulls in the money, and then gets whipped when he's not doing it the right way. No, so when we find these two things together, when brothers, you show your wife the affection, it will make it easier to be respectful and affectionate towards you. These things go hand in hand. Don't be demanding your rights when you're not giving her rights. The same with sisters, don't be expecting your rights when you're not giving their rights. This marriage is a partnership that goes hand in hand. There are rights and obligations. When those things are put into proper context, problems are avoided, inshallah. جزاكم خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك وجزاكم خيرا. If any of you have any questions for me, I'll be right outside of the DVD table, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.